Thank you very much, Nicole. My name is Helen Arns, as she mentioned. So I'm the CEO of Good Things Marketing. We're a digital marketing and personal branding agency based out of Adelaide. We have offices in Prospect and Unley, and we also work all across Australia and Asia and parts of the world as well now. A little bit about me. I'm a social media specialist by trade, and I do happen to specialise in the medical health profession field, so I feel like today we're going to be a bit helpful, hopefully. So a little bit about GTM. GTM is an Australian digital agency, as I said. We're also South Australia's exclusive Hootsuite partner and an accredited ADMA member, because we believe professional body and association memberships are really important. So, as I mentioned before, we do work with lots of medical and health professionals. We work with all sorts of different size businesses as well, everyone from the Big Four through to some local guys here, through to some not-for-profits and startups as well. So what is social media and what is digital marketing? What are all these things? It's the big umbrella term for basically a whole range of different services that we offer. So we do everything from digital strategy and content strategy through to things like today, so social media training and workshops. We also do social media marketing and event activations and a whole range of different services. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, the game plan is that we're going to quickly go through rules of play. How does tonight work? Can I ask questions, etc.? And then we're going to go through probably the most important part, your legal requirements when it comes to social media. Then we're going to talk about what you can and you can't say, how to be a great brand ambassador, and with your new logos coming out, this is something that you'll all probably be very interested in. We're going to talk about public life in a social media space as well. And I'm going to give you a social media bullying court case example, so we're applying our learnings with a real-world case study. And then I'm going to go through the quick top 3 tips for social media success, because sometimes your pizza is just too good and your mind kind of wanders, and then you get to the end and you go, what are the 3 things that I need to know in summary? And then we'll have a bit of a Q&A section as well. But that being said, rules of play, so please feel free to take photos as you go along. Please do have your phones out or your tablets out. I'm not one of those people that don't like that. I'm quite happy to see you taking photos and participating. Please do join us on social media if you'd like to as well. We are generally, or I'm Arnsy on most platforms at the bottom, or Good Things Marketing, and feel free to join us on socials. Ready to go? So obviously social media is all about puppies and cats, and I went down the puppy road today. So with social media, healthcare professionals, we have this wonderful opportunity where we can connect with our patients and promote healthy living. But first of all, we need to think about our legal requirements. So as professionals working in the healthcare industry, each and every one of us are legally required to meet the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency's guidelines for social media and advertising. The guidelines are rather detailed. If you have had a little look at them, they're quite complex. But in a high-level summary, the things we need to know today is the things that we cannot do. So what's really, really important about these guidelines is that we do not mislead or deceive through advertising. We do not offer gifts or discounts to attract clients, especially not using our T's and C's, and that's more for your marketing team, but still useful to know. It's really important that we do not use testimonials. This is something that applies to everyone. And it's really important that we don't create unreasonable expectations about a benefit of a certain treatment. And it's also really important to not encourage unnecessary use of regulated healthcare services. That's the key insights from the guidelines. Pardon? No, I think it's more like 10% off if you buy 2, get 1 free. It's more around that. It's not bulk billing. And then in addition to the APRA guidelines, you are also legally required to adhere to SA Heart's social media policy procedure. You have to have read this in full as well. And I don't have copies here with me today, but I'm sure it's available on your intranet or easily available at the end. If you want to come have a chat with me, we can make that available to you. But what I'd like to do is go through some of the key insights of this policy. So you are personally responsible for your own commentary, and we'll go more into this in detail on what that means and what we can and can't say afterwards. You cannot disclose confidential and sensitive company information. Straightforward. You cannot discuss your involvement with projects within your personal social mediums. So that's around IP protection and making sure that we're keeping privacy up to date. Be mindful and respectful of your audience, which we'll also go through in more detail later in the presentation. Obtain permission to use SA Heart name and logo. So if we were to do a social media campaign, which we probably wouldn't be doing, but perhaps you're very enthusiastic and you'd like to do something like that, we need to get permission and probably speak to the marketing team for something like that. Notify the appropriate person regarding any positive or negative comments viewed. So what that basically means is that in different worlds, we might be part of, say, for example, Facebook groups. Lots of us are part of Facebook groups. That's a very common practice. Say, for example, there might be a past client says something and your whole marketing team is not able to capture that at every moment. So it's about you guys becoming brand ambassadors to help support your brand as well in other spaces. And notify the appropriate person regarding any positive or negative comments. Yeah. So that's the high-level version. So if you are really interested in this legal stuff, in particular the more in-depth reading the very large stuff, what you can do is you can see the link that's provided in your handouts for the full guidelines and definitions of certain aspects for APRA there. One resource which is probably more relevant to your marketing teams running the official SA Heart is the Check and Correct self-assessment tool. So anyway, all these resources are available to you in your handout for more detail, more depth. So that's a bit dry and boring. So what I thought I would do is I found a bit more fun, a little bit more interesting video that sort of keeps, it's an American version, but if we keep in mind APRA's guidelines, it gives some good tips on how we can conduct ourselves online.
Well, it was great talking to you. Excellent academics, and your recommendations are outstanding.
Thank you.
You won't mind if I take a look at your online social media posts?
Why?
It's just something we do as a matter of course nowadays. It gives us extra insight into whoever we're bringing on board. I'm sure we won't find anything significant.
I bet you I'm gonna get another one. Watch. Man. Let's do it. Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah.
One more. Come on.
Good.
Come on.
Take this one.
Awesome.
Right down the hatch. Do it again.
Let's do it. One.
Whoa.
Nice.
Oh, this is awesome. Oh man, I gotta post this.
We've all been in situations like this before. We've had fun. We want our friends to see it, so we share it. We post it online on social media websites, or send photos in an email or text, and all it takes is a push of a button. But that's not where it ends. In many cases, it's just the beginning. Professionals in a wide range of fields are discovering the consequences of social media, from its impact on personal reputations, to loss of income and opportunities, to lawsuits and litigation. It's not that there's anything wrong with having a good time and broadcasting it to the world. It's understanding that most social networking is public, not private property. And once posted, it can never truly disappear. And anything you post online can never be considered private.
Very good. No problems here. We're all looking forward to you coming on board.
Thank you. Me too.
Oh, awesome.
Very excited about the opportunity.
As are we.
Take a moment and imagine a few other scenarios. It may not be an interview for a job or an application for graduate or medical school. It may be a post like this. or a message like this, or a photo like this. Were these real or fake? The answer, unfortunately, is these were all based on real posts that cause real problems. Did you know the most common cause of disciplinary action against medical students, residents, and physicians isn't making a wrong diagnosis or making a mistake in the operating room? It's a lack of professional behavior. Did you know that these posts, even without any patient identifiers, could be HIPAA violations and may also violate state privacy laws, which in turn could lead to significant fines and even jail time? We need to acknowledge that being in the medical profession is a job, a responsibility, and a privilege. Doctors, nurses, and medical professionals have chosen a higher calling and must demonstrate their professionalism to a higher standard. Look, there's nothing wrong with having a good time. And there are positives to social media too. Communicating with friends, family, colleagues, and patients. Promoting your medical practice. Getting important messages out to the public, even simply as a form of personal expression. But the pitfalls are severe. Loss of friends, patients, being fired, or being disciplined by state boards of medicine, including having your professional license revoked. You could even wind up in jail. So think a little bit before you send a message or upload an image. Is this something you'd want your mother to see or your boss? If you have any questions about something you're about to post, back off and think about it for 24 hours. It is too easy to just push a button and regret it for the rest of your life. It could be the difference between humiliation and having the time of your life. So go out, have fun, but please remember to post responsibly.
So that was obviously an American version and not the same industry as us. But it was actually a really good kind of example. And I think the examples that they used, like all the blood bags on the floor and the fact that these were actually real cases in America, just goes to show that what might be a little bit funny can actually end up being a legal, serious issue. And I do have some case studies from Australia afterwards as well. So thinking about that video and thinking about the APRA guidelines and keeping in mind SA Heart's policy, what are some of the things that I can't really say? What might be the grey or the completely red areas? So saying things like, I work at the very best practice in the entire world, which you would think would be pretty safe, but that could be falling into the testimonial space. So unless you have proof or evidence of this, it's a bit of actually a risky one to say. So here's a photo of the stents that I put in Tim after his heart attack. Perhaps not appropriate. And on this one as well, here's a photo of Joe Blow that I worked on this afternoon, and you can see identifiable tattoos or other things as well. That also is not okay. Jane Doe is a silly manager who doesn't know how to do her job, or something to that extent. Or one of my patients says, I'm back on my feet after surgery with SA Heart. They are the best in the world. So great to get this kind of response. Well, that's a wonderful, warm, beautiful piece of feedback to take. Using it as a testimonial pushes you into that grey area. That would be, see, retweeting is really interesting. That kind of pushes you into the endorsement space. So you're basically using it for a testimonial. So I'd be careful about that. I don't think there's any legal precedent about it, but I would definitely be careful about that for testimonial purposes. Saying something, so some examples I can't say still. Saying something like, you'll never have to worry about cholesterol ever again if you take this procedure with us. Again, misleading and advertising. The benefits of stents give you superhuman results. Contact us to find out how you can become superhuman. So promising above and beyond what the product actually delivers. And then the other ones is perhaps using photos of clients, like we saw in the video, using photos of other staff or SA Heart materials without written permission, or doing silly things. And this is something that we see a lot of, unfortunately, in the horror cases, but doing silly things while wearing my SA Heart uniform, or being around our signage or our materials or other collateral items. So it's really important that we think of that as well. Can you think of any other examples that you would avoid? So we've talked about the Twitter retweeting. Is there anything else you think, or you might have seen something similar that you've gone, I'm not really sure if I would say that or not? Yeah, absolutely.
What if like you're on the weekend with like some of your good friends that
Yep.
work with you, like work girls or something like that, but you're not?
You're just at like, you know, day on the green and just having fun. I think that would be fine because you're not saying the SA Heart girl crew and us getting sloshed at Day in the Green, that's where it starts to go down that kind of, I'm not really sure if this is a safe one, but hanging out with the girls and I love my colleagues and that sort of stuff, that's quite a safe. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's where it gets really cloudy. That being said, we do talk about brand ambassadorship shortly, which basically says, which we'll be talking about the fine line between if you constantly promote that you work for SA Heart and then on the weekends you post, I'm getting sloshed with the work girls, that puts you back into the grey area because you're operating as a brand ambassador for the company.
What if they never mention where they're working for post, but then their profile says they work for SA Heart?
Yes. So we're going to talk about brand ambassadorship. So if you take the business badge and brand and you run with it and it's public in your profile, listed as an employer on LinkedIn and you're posting it on LinkedIn or you're posting it on Twitter, Facebook, etc., then you're operating as a brand ambassador because you have that as part of your identity. Yes.
What about, so sometimes like Christmas comes and we're wearing our SA Heart
Yep.
and we're wearing Christmas hats. Post a picture to say happy holidays.
Yep. So it's very similar to the example, right? That's a really interesting example because what we've got is we have some people having fun and the photo in the example, I think what they tried to show was alcohol being consumed while on the job wearing the uniform. So if you're at the Christmas party and it's quite clear that you're off site, you're off duty, you're not on call. I think that's the other thing to note as well if you're one of the doctors, then that would be okay. But again, if you're posting it as, I'm at the SA Heart Christmas party, it's like taking down a bottle of champagne, then it gets a bit iffy again.
Oh, and more meant also at work. Pictures of us in Christmas hats at work.
Yeah, so I think it's similar to being at work, right? There's a bit of fun and then there's doing your work as well. But then there's a bit of fun, but we post 8 of those photos and it's over, a 3-hour time period. And perhaps I would be concerned about how effective you have been that day at work. So you need to think that way as well. Anything we do is public, so awesome. Thank you. All right. So with this in mind, let's take a moment to think about all the places where you might have listed or shared that you work at SA Heart. So here's some to get you thinking about. Was it on LinkedIn where you've listed that you work at SA Heart? What about on Facebook? Do you list that your job title at SA Heart? Or perhaps you don't, and what you've done instead is you've shared something that SA Heart has shared on your own personal page. Maybe on Twitter, you have your job title and what you do. Maybe even on Instagram. Perhaps you're a little bit visual video savvy and that's your area. What about on Snapchat? Have you ever taken a Snapchat while on the job and your uniform was identifiable? What about your personal blog? Do you write about stories or your journeys or anything at all and you happen to mention that you also do this? Is there anywhere else? So now that we are writing a little shopping list of all the places that we have, what we need to do now is think about doing a cleanup. Do we need to do a double check to check that you meet the APRA guidelines in addition to SA Health's policy guidelines in your personal and professional social media? If you do need to do a cleanup, I recommend doing it tonight. This is specific to social media, but the court case that I give you examples with will also apply. So it's kind of social media is one of those things. It's like, what counts as social media? Does a blog? Yes and no, depending if where it's hosted and stuff like that. So this is almost like, take it with a grain of salt. Content that's shared, whether it's distributed through MMS, picture SMS, whether it's a blog content, whether it's a little video you take on your phone and you save for later that maybe going to end up on social media. It's basically content online. So when you're on social media and you do list SA Heart as your employer, or you share our content, you have become a brand ambassador, which is great. And you look like these guys. So happy. So we've talked a little bit about what we can't say online, but as a brand ambassador, as a really fantastic person for the SA Heart brand, what we can say is a lot on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the professional social media networking site for those who don't know. And it's really a huge opportunity here. So the simple one, the first one we can do straight up is 1, have a LinkedIn account. 2, list that we work at SA Heart. And 3, write a little bit about what you do at SA Heart. Like, what's your role entail? Who do you work with? So when people find you and want to connect or network with you on your professional networking site, they know a little bit about you. The other awesome thing about LinkedIn on that is that we can share thought leadership. So we can be, we can have in our profile that we work at SA Heart, and you're sharing thought leadership on a certain topic or something new that's come out or your area of expertise. And you can engage with, there's a lot of different opportunities there, but you can engage with other cardiologists by liking their posts or by sharing videos and all sorts of different things. So LinkedIn is your number one opportunity for being an excellent brand ambassador. Some other things that you can share include professional development courses that you've attended and even your learnings at these courses. So five takeaways from the PD day on X. Simple. Another one you can share is uploading photos of your colleagues in attendance at a conference or event. So, Christmas party, or perhaps you have your national conference for X, Y, and Z. It's 3 of the best X's in this field working on X. So that's a really good one to share too. Yeah, sure. So LinkedIn, who remembers or still has a Rolodex? Yeah, a few people. So basically, if you don't know what a Rolodex is, it's this wonderful business card holder that you flip around to the alphabetical order, right? And you just keep all your business cards in it. So LinkedIn is your online Rolodex. It's basically where you connect with your colleagues and your peers and different people that you meet throughout your career, and you get to keep them as connections as your career develops and as they develop, and you can find opportunities later on, whether that's let's collaborate together, let's form something together, let's share research that we're doing together, or would you like to come and work with us? So there's all these different opportunities around that. So when we're on LinkedIn and we have nice, clear, professional headshots, like you saw at the start with my red lipstick, not today, apologies, but having nice, clear headshots so people know who you are, they meet you online before you actually meet them in person is so, so important. Having a clear description, so for example, mine's CEO of Good Things Marketing, very clear, it's very easy to know what you do. For the cardiologists and everybody else, it's just such a great opportunity to get to meet and connect with different people and share what's happening, and basically it's like an online conference. So in terms of advancing your career, super important. And yes, so the other thing you can do, and this is very specific to LinkedIn because being a brand ambassador in the professional social networking is going to give you a lot more value than obviously in Facebook and your personal. But what we can do is we can share the research that we've helped to contribute to or help supervise. And the other beautiful thing with LinkedIn is, on Facebook how you can tag people. So you write @ the little @ and then Helen Arns. You can do that on LinkedIn as well. And LinkedIn is awesome for personal brand in terms of reach, in that if I'm writing some research that I worked with 3 other researchers or 3 of my partners with, what I can do is I can tag each and every one of them. And what that does, unlike Facebook, is that it will share you to all of their audience. So on Facebook, when you tag a friend, it used to be then all their friends would see that you'd tag them in it. And now it's only their best friends. that LinkedIn still does that. LinkedIn shares all of your connections with their connections. So if you're working with these high value people and you're high value, your personal brand reach amongst their high value audiences is significant. So that's the huge opportunity around LinkedIn. And I could honestly talk about LinkedIn for a whole hour, so I'm going to stop. You can also share blog posts of your further learnings, research, or special areas of interest. If you are currently a specialist in an area or you want to move into an area of expertise, this is where you can start talking about it on LinkedIn or indeed on your personal blogs as well, to basically show your credibility and show your research and your strength as you go on. And of course, you can always share the official SA Heart updates, and I'll talk more about why that's important later on. And you can also share that you love where you work, you love the work that you do and the people that you do it with. So that was that beautiful example of delivering babies never gets old, like that sort of stuff as well. So with the SA Heart official content, how can you sharing their official content, acting as a brand ambassador, actually help SA Heart and you guys as a team? Well, everybody knows word of mouth is the number one, right? It's still the number one way that people sell and refer and come back to. So employees that share official content are trusted 2 times more than the C-suite. So if you're sharing this with your communities and stuff like that, there's going to be a lot more trust, a lot more brand authority to your personal brand as you share that as well. Employees Employees' social posts generate 8 times more engagement than posts from their employers. The pull that you have, the audiences that you have, and the trust that you have with your friends and family really, really matter. And you can see that with these metrics. And that's why your personal brand does often meld into your private brand as well. And people are 16 times more likely to read a post from a friend than from the brand itself. So if there's something that comes out from SA Heart and you're like, yes, I get that, I'm passionate about that, or yes, we made a difference, or yes, this is great, you should share it, because people within your communities and your audiences will read that 16 times more likely than if they saw it some other way. And the other part of it, of course, is you guys, the employees, the awesome employees. So employees of socially engaged companies have these awesome benefits, that they are more likely to stay with the company, so you get to keep your work wife. They feel more optimistic about their company's future, so where we're going and all the fantastic innovations we are investing in, and believe your company is more competitive. If you love SA Heart, then sharing content is one way that you can use your awesome personal brand to help share the good work that you're doing. So some of you may be thinking, why do I need to know all this? Like, how is this relevant to me? Because all social media is 100% public. I know there's a few of you going, no, I have a private profile, or that's switched to private, but I'm here to tell you it's not. There are people like me who can find anything. Anything that you do say, anything that you send, transmit on your personal social media is public, because these are platforms that buy and sell your content and your information to outside advertisers, and sometimes, not so much in Australia, but sometimes have to provide access to government departments that need access to certain things, if that makes sense. So even if your privacy settings on Facebook are set to private, which they should be, anyway, even in your private messages, even after you've deleted it. So put your hand up if you thought that if you deleted it, it would be gone from social media forever. Couple people? Yeah? Yeah, so not everybody knows this, but basically there's this wonderful thing, I say wonderful for me, there's this wonderful thing for me where I can go back to any point on the internet when something was available and basically go back into the archive and find when it was available and then get access to that content, which any of you can do if you spend too much time on the internet like I do. So anything we do in our private worlds is still public. Let's expand upon that a little bit more. So once it's out there, you can't take it back. Once you've hit send, once you've hit publish, once you've retweeted, Once you've said what you've said, you can't take it back. So what we do before we hit send, like that guy, is we always apply the grandma rule. Basically, if your grandma wouldn't approve of it, don't send it, write it, or share it. If it doesn't pass the grandma test, it doesn't hit the public realm of social media. Because it's really important to remember that it only takes one single screenshot of that private conversation or one person to see that piece of content for it to become court admissible evidence. So the Australian example that I've got to share with you today is around the ACT, the Supreme Court of ACT, who recently awarded a plaintiff $180,000 in damages. What did they do? Like you'd think $180,000, they must have done something really terrible, there must be a lot of it, there must be a lot of information, but they literally did 9 defamatory posts. How horrible was it? What were the awful things that were saying? Were they just absolutely hateful? Well, yes, they were. The person that wrote this insinuated that an employee was dishonest, racist, and generally underperforming in her role. Right? So these are all things that we talked about earlier on. And it's becoming more and more of a thing that we're actually seeing in media law more and more over again. It's just it's just an application of our traditional media laws that are being applied to like smaller social media cases.
Well, if you say I wrote that,
Mm-hmm.
but if I did, and then Margot liked it and then commented,
Mm-hmm.
is Margot equally as...
Yes, Margot is, so she could be sued for defamation as well. It's kind of like saying if so if you think of it in the media, right? If the Australian ran a defamatory piece on me and I decided to sue them and the Guardian also ran with that piece without research, I could sue both of them. It comes under defamation laws in and around media. So if you think it's a bit of a joke and you like something and you think, I shouldn't have done that, you definitely shouldn't have, because you should have done your grandma check. And if grandma would have been ashamed of you making fun of someone else online, then you're also legally going to get in trouble too. So ultimately, saying unkind or defamatory things online, in any online space, about colleagues, managers, about the workplace, about your clients, any of these can lead to not even the company getting sued, but you personally are liable for defamation. So I want you to think a little bit more about this scenario. I want you to imagine that you've done this for whatever reason, in another planet, another world, you've done this. I want you to think about who would employ you after this. I want you to think about all the people that would know about your criminal record after the media has reported on it, your face in court, your name, your job, and the company that you worked in. I want you to think about how your friends and family would respond with the media turning up at their house, following you around. It's not such a small thing anymore, is it? Just writing something. So it's one of those things we take it a bit for granted. We're like, oh, I just wrote that on my private friend's thing. But it actually gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it can have really severe consequences for your career, but also for your personal lives. So with all that in mind, how on earth can we avoid that horrible situation? Well, the easiest way is to apply the grandma rule. If she wouldn't approve of it, don't write it, don't send it, don't share it, don't like what someone else has done, don't comment and say, haha. Do you know that emojis, there's now been a court case around people supporting with emojis? Yes, emojis are the international language, so don't put laughing, crying face. Don't encourage hate speech online because you are liable personally. Right, so that's a lot to take in. So, in summary, what I would like to do is go through the 3 takeaways for the pizza brain people who are just here for a bit of a tune out, and I promise I won't hang on for much longer. The number 1 tip that I'd like you to take away is to approach social media professionally and always apply the grandma rule, particularly if you're in doubt. Remember to adhere to the APRA guidelines and to your SA Heart guidelines as well, I would say. And the last one, social media is a public space, regardless of the privacy settings. with that all in mind, does anybody have some questions or scenarios that they'd like me to have a chat about? Is there anything that they've seen that they have some questions about? Otherwise, I'll just be available afterwards and you can have a chat then.
I just ask you,
Yeah, sure.
the cases that have gone to court and people have had something happen from it, have they been personally named, or is it
Yes.
insinuation?
Oh, as in the... So say that to me one more time because I'm not sure which one you mean.
When things have gone wrong in court,
Yep.
has it been because someone's been personally named, like Anne was?
Right. So the question is, I wrote Anne is a silly manager or my boss is a silly manager. Both of them are defamatory. If I can tell who you're talking about, both of them, yeah, would be defamatory. Particularly, like it'd be easier and easier for me to build a court case against you if you worked at SA Hart and you put that on your Facebook, I work at SA Hart, and then you wrote my boss is silly and your name is there. So, yeah. Don't do it at all. There's another question at the back. Yep. Yeah, so I believe the question was you're having a nice conversation and it starts to turn a bit sideways and it's not you, it's other people. This is a really interesting one that's come through only in the last few years. You do, because you're the person who has the conversation and fosters the conversation, if you don't shut it down, you can become liable. So for example, for this case, someone's writing on a Facebook post on your wall and it becomes a thread and there's other people commenting. So they are more liable, so they can be sued for larger damages. But if you maintain this and you don't kind of delete the post and do everything you possibly can to step away from it, you are way more open to it. And you would struggle to argue that. It's like, well, I just witnessed something horrible happen and I didn't really do anything about it. And in fact, it sat on my wall where my professional profile is available. It's not really my fault. It doesn't really hold up. So that's something to keep in mind too. Mm-hmm.
And then one of them friends with the other one, and then this one was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And the company ultimately
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. So basically, just to reiterate, it was there was a case, and there has been similar sort of things where the person was Facebook friends with someone. They decided they didn't want to be friends anymore. They worked together. And I believe there was some other things happening in the workplace, harassment that was happening. So she decided that she would unfriend this person and start to exclude them, which actually added layers to the depth of the workplace harassment and bullying that was going on, which added basically fuel to the fire to be able to successfully go against them. Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, this is a really good point. So something to keep in mind is that you should never, ever, ever accept a friend request on your personal Facebook from a client. That's actually something that's really, really important as well. And if you're not sure, don't. If you're not sure, don't. And I say that because once you have them on the page and then you change your mind afterwards, we were talking about that case, therefore there's legal precedent. So what you can do is you can say, thanks, Kathy, for your Facebook request. Like in person, over coffee, you bump into her. I don't really accept people other than my immediate family on my Facebook page at this stage, but we're still friends. Let's go grab lunch, etc. So she knows that it's nothing personal. It's just a case of you are really trying to keep your personal profile personal, but knowing it's not private.
What if you're already friends?
Mm-hmm. So you have entered into a whole other world now.
Well, no confidentiality, you're allowed to say anything. You should, make the approach of saying,
Yeah.
you want someone else to do the ECG or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know you,
Yeah.
and I'll keep it secret. But what if you're already friends with them and there's stuff on your Facebook? What?
As in, if you don't want to be friends with them anymore?
no, but like, what if you're already friends with the client?
Oh, okay. So that's a bit different. Yeah, I would be very careful about that because that does kind of bring you into a little bit of a tricky spot. But that being said, it's Adelaide, right? We all have friends and family that are around or involved in our work. I would just be very careful, particularly, if they might message you later on and go, just wanted to ask you a quick question about that, or just wanted to see if you could help bump this up for me, or, it's gone beyond the realm of friends, then you're starting to get yourself in a really icky spot that I would be careful about.
So, say like me and Emma are friends on Facebook, and we don't like each other.
Yep.
And it's like mutual, and we unfriend each other. We can sue.
It's not it's not America. I mean, America, yes, perhaps. What that would involve would be a little bit more complex. So, for example, you don't like each other and then one of you have started to, on purpose, exclude the other person. You've started to, harass them in the workplace. You've said horrible things. Like, it'd start to escalate. That's when your lawyer would start to build a case. Like, look, it's a sustained harassment, bullying, etc. And this was one major thing of, this is proof that she's excluded. And I know because I can go back into the web archive and screenshot the day that you were friends, you're no longer friends, and therefore present that. So it's not so much like, I don't like you anymore, and then you both unfriend each other. That's fine. Friendships move on. But if there's more to it, particularly if there's harassment or you think there could be down the line, you just need to be careful about that. So really, you just need to start from day one of keeping your cards a bit closer to the chest in terms of, I won't add everybody. Too much time in their hands. Perhaps. Yes.
So one of my friends is a teacher, and she's friends with some of the other teachers, and one older teacher tried to add her, who she doesn't actually know that well and didn't want to be friends with her on Facebook. This other older teacher can see that she's friends with other teachers. So she deliberately ignores her friend request. Is that excluding her?
That's an interesting one. I think that would be a hard one to prove because you could argue that it's your private... obviously if there's more stuff going on in the workplace than we know of, then I don't think you would be able to argue it in, but once you're in and you exclude them out, I think that would be a stronger case. But I wouldn't know specific. I would argue that. Yeah. Any other questions? This is great. Yes. Find things.
What about WhatsApp? That's encrypted, and no one can.
I can screenshot though. Oh yeah. I could be standing behind you and you're on your phone, and I see over the corner, and then when I put my court case together against you, they can seek permission to get access to the WhatsApp device that you use to basically use it against you for me suing you. So it's not even about Big Brother, right? So social media is about community. It's about people. It's like what we have right now. But the difference is that it's written down in record. So if we think about social media as being citizen journalists, as little bloggers who write our own things, but we write it, this is the difference, right? We write it down, it's public record, and it's there forever. That's why we need to really be the best versions of ourselves and be aware of the risk. But at the same time, this may never happen to you, but we need to be the best people that we can and treat all our colleagues respectfully and operate in a safe space, because you have to remember that our work doesn't stop now, right? We get text messages, can you do this? You get Facebook requests, hey, can we swap this? Can we organise this? Our work has creeped into that realm of our life, and that's why today really is just heightening our awareness of public and private worlds.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Facebook, if someone puts a post and tags you in it, and it shows it wrong, can you do anything about that?
Yeah, so if we have someone else post and tag us in something that's not very nice about something or other, it comes down to that same thing that we're talking about at the back there. What I would do is, it really depends. I would contact the person and say, you need to take this down. This is really unkind and inappropriate. And I think it puts both of us and everybody else at risk. Can you take this down immediately?
As my tag, can I do anything about it?
I think you can turn off notifications. Yeah, but you're still tagged in it. So that would be the tricky thing. And so proving a paper trail is that you've sent them a message and you've removed yourself, but you'd still be there, which is why you go straight to the source and say, this is a bit iffy. I know what you meant. It was a bit of a joke, but it was a bit iffy. We better take it down. Let's err on the side of caution because it didn't pass the grammar test. Cool. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, yeah. You can report posts to Facebook as well. So, for example, if someone takes a photo, say, for example, you're subjected to bullying online. One of the things you can do, the dot in the top right-hand corner of most social media, usually Facebook, you can report posts and you can basically say it's harassing or violating myself or someone else, or it's hate speech or racist or other things. So you can do that actual formal process. I'll be quite upfront that they're not great at it. It's not their strong point. And that's why, actually, it's probably a really good point to say, if you are, like, if you do feel uncomfortable or people are saying things about you, you should definitely speak to your manager, because it's, workplace bullying is not just always in the workplace, particularly now that we live in this blurred line. So speak to your manager and get the support you need and get the paper trail happening and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
On the reporting of posts, is it anonymous?
Yes. Yeah, it's anonymous. If you report a post, you won't get identified. They do protect you. Great. All right. Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to head off, and I think I'll have a minute or two if anyone wants to have a chat with me and ask some questions that perhaps you've just thought of or you didn't really want to put your hand up and ask. But thank you. And don't be afraid of social media. It's one of those things that, like I said, the brand ambassadorship, you can do so well. You're aware of all the scary things now, so you're going to do brilliantly, and I can't wait to connect with you all on LinkedIn and see your thought leadership and all the great things that you're doing. Thanks.